The right to vote is still under attack. And that is why the Justice Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland speaking at a black church in Selma, Alabama about voting rights. Now, this is part of the White House's tour of Selma. Kamala Harris is down there. Quite a few of them are down there doing photo ops, shaking hands, kissing babies, the whole thing, because we love the blacks, and we're going to go out there to where they are in front of this old, rickety, rundown bridge with no infrastructure funding while we send billions to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, all over the world. We're going to go there and say, hey, we're doing things for you. So come on out in 2024 and vote for our guy, Joe Biden, who is the oldest man to ever draw breath on planet Earth. That's what this was. And before I even get into the news clip and the full video from Merrick Garland, it's kind of embarrassing to have these people use us in the community for their purposes. The only reason why Merrick Garland went there to that church was to use them and to use that setting as a backdrop to push a political narrative, a fake one at that. Voting rights under attack, really? Who does not have the right to vote in 2024? I mean, unless you'd have been to the penitentiary, unless you just refuse to go get a license, which is usually free or low cost. Who does not have the right to vote? How is the right to vote under attack? I don't understand. Now, before I go any further, let's get into the news clip. If you want to see the clip in full without my commentary, link, as always, will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Now, mass meetings were common, of course, during the civil rights movement. They were usually held at churches. So this morning, that tradition continued. Tabernacle Baptist Church hosted U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. WSFA 12 News reporter Monet Stevens takes us there.
The sounds of gospel music touching dozens of souls at Tabernacle Baptist Church during its special Bridge Crossing Jubilee service.
Now, I'm not going to necessarily attack these people at the church. I'm not quite sure they even understand what's going on here as far as how they're being used. Because, okay, you're a small town church, and then Merrick Garland or whoever, the White House, reaches out and says, hey, we want to come to your church or whatever, you might be all for it. But I'm here to educate if people don't know. You're being used for a photo op, for a video op. Like I said, Kamala Harris and more were down there just for the purpose of pushing their political narrative, using you as a background. That is all of what's going on here.
United States Attorney General Merrick Garland was the church's guest speaker. He addressed the congregation about the state of voting in the country, saying the fight is not over.
The right to vote is still under attack.
Who's attacking the right to vote? That's what I want to know. If anybody agrees with him, please give me a little bit of insight. Maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know anything, but give me some insight. I'd love to hear it.
While lawmakers in Washington are pushing to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Enhancement Act, Garland says the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division is challenging states and other jurisdictions who are using discriminatory practices to prevent ballot access,
including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements.
The DOJ is also defending more individuals who file lawsuits under the provisions under the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act.
We are defending the ability of private individuals, not just the government, to bring lawsuits under the key provisions of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Who are we suing and for what reason? Like, what's really going on?
As Alabama prepares for the primaries on Tuesday and the general election in November, Garland says the Department of Justice is working to preserve the rights that were fought for 59 years ago.
Our commitment to you is that we will never stop working with you and for you to ensure that every eligible voter can cast a vote that counts.
Monet Stevens, WSFA 12 News, Selma.
So that's what's going on out there in Selma, Alabama. Now let's take a look at the fuller clip here. Shout out to Vernon Jones for posting this and then giving his caption. I want to read what he wrote, then we're going to get into the fuller clip. He says, "It's insulting to the entire black community for Attorney General Merrick Garland to go stand in the pulpit of a black church and say to a black congregation, they are too stupid to afford a free photo ID to vote. In his mind, like all liberal Democrat white supremacists, blacks should not vote their pocketbooks. Forget about the illegals invading their neighborhoods, crime, high interest rates, gas prices, cost of milk and materials at Home Depot. I noticed Merrick doesn't have any black direct reports. No DEI in his office. Very interesting. So let's check it out.
The right to vote is still under attack. And that is why the Justice Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division.
Now, what is that really going to do? You doubled the size of the division. What is that going to do other than just create more bureaucracy, more red tape, more jobs for people in D.C., more D.C. expenditures, more taxpayer expense? What is it really going to do? I'd love to know that. And I think the quality of this video might be from the church's live stream, perhaps.
That is why we are challenging efforts by states and jurisdictions to implement discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot, including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements. That is why we are working to block the adoption of discriminatory redistricting plans that dilute the vote of black voters and other voters of color.
Voters of color. So silly, so ridiculous. But, you know, these are very well crafted. When I say well, I don't mean as in these are good messages, but they're well crafted from the point of view of they want to convey a specific message to a specific people. You know, voters of color, all this and that. So then when certain things get brought up later, they go to court or whatever, if they're involved in lawsuits, and they can say, oh, well, I didn't say it's only for black. I said for voters of color. And, you know, that's kind of how they do. But this is really embarrassing, really ridiculous as I close. I mean, if I was a member of that church in the congregation behind him, if I'm the pastor, preacher man at this church, I'd be embarrassed to have this man come to my particular establishment and use us for his own political purposes, to go out there and just spew a bunch of lies about the right to vote being under attack. I think what we want as conservatives, and I think I could speak for all of us when I say all we want is transparency into the process and also just some security. Have ID to go vote. It's simple. Where I live, it's done perfectly. I have no complaints. Now, I'm going to tell you my process as I wrap it up and put the bow on top. What we do is have a specific place we go to with a card. You're giving the card in the mail. Okay, you go to that place over there. Okay, cool. And you must present your photo ID to the people before you get your ballot. You get your ballot, paper ballot. You fill it out old school style, Scantron style you take a pen, bubble in who you want. You give it to the guy when you're leaving. He gives you the little, you got to tear off the little piece of the Scantron, put that over here in the bin. You scan in your actual sheet. You get a sticker and you go about your way. I have no problem with that. None whatsoever. Everything's out in the open. Everybody sees what's going on. Paper ballots that can be counted by hand if the machine has a problem. What's the issue? Rather than electronic only, no ID required, that kind of thing shouldn't be going on. The way we do it here is the way that it always been done. Since I've been 18 years old, voting for the first time back in the early 2000s. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There was no complaints about the system back then, unless you're talking about taking the paper ballots and moving them from here to there, whatever, the Florida kerfuffle. But that's much better than no ID, than no paper. If we could do that, then there's no problem. I think he wants to make it be less secure, and that's going to be an issue. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on Merrick Garland going to Selma, Alabama, speaking in front of a predominantly black church about voting rights? Did he tell a lie? Was he telling the truth? Was it just pretty embarrassing to use them as a prop in the background? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I was totally embarrassed for the congregation, for the church, for the pastor, and I think that they are being misserved by these people. And it's been the same way year after year. And I hope people, especially the young folks who are not so much stuck in the ways, I hope we could just get away from this. We could just stop all this nonsense with the Democratic Party, because as you saw from what he said, and as you have been seeing throughout the years, they're not doing a service to the black community or for the entire country, regardless of your color. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.